Yes, well, welcome everyone. It's a bit of a difficult challenge. It's the first time I've been scheduled on exactly the same slot as a football team walking out of the building. So obviously there's a few more people interested in the Champions League than there is in content management, but hey-ho. My name's David Storey. I'm the Programme Manager at UK Power Networks, which is, as we will look through, a distributor of electricity in the United Kingdom. It's probably as easy to say what they don't do rather than what they do. They're not a supplier of electricity. They're not the people that consumers actually pay their bills to. The UK market has been deregulated. It's separated between generators, between transmission, between distributors and supply companies. And if anybody follows politics in the UK at the moment, it is one of the hottest topics on the planet with respect to rising energy costs. But UK Power Networks actually do the piece here where we distribute the electricity. We take it from what's called the national grid and actually deliver it to people's homes and businesses. And UK Power Networks, they're a very young organisation. They were only formed in 2011. However, they're staffed by people who've been in the electricity industry for 40 and sometimes 45 years. So there's a real dichotomy that they're a very, very young organisation, but resourced by people who are very set in the ways and have done it the same way over decades as such. UK Power Networks actually bought the distribution businesses from EDF Energy, and that's what brought them into being. And they look after a particular region within inside the UK, and it's shown on the red area there. And it's formed of what's called 3 network operations. They look after the east of England, the southeast of England, and they look after London. They've got approximately 8 million customers, and of those 8 million customers, very few of them even know that UK Power Networks exists. The vast majority of the time, it's a very boring industry. You know, you get up in the morning, you put your light on, and it works. The only time you're really interested in UK Power Networks is when you press the switch and it doesn't work. And then, UK Power Networks are very popular. But the vast majority of steady state, nobody knows they're there. The only other case where you come across them is where they're digging up the road. So they're delaying your journey into the office in the morning. That's the only other time you typically come across them. Few facts, there's 5,000 employees. About half of those are desk-based, and half of those are field-based. They're actually the engineers up the pylons, etc., or down the trenches, fixing the supplies as such. And there's roughly 160,000 kilometres of cable in the 30,000 square kilometres of area that we look after. So geographically, it's quite a significant footprint. Content management. Let's start with the end in mind. So we're going to go on a journey, and a journey that UK Power Networks went through. But let's picture, what does success look like? So the very first thing we did, we sat down and we tried to just encapsulate in a few words, what will success look like? How will we know that we've done? What does good look like, etc.? And this is our attempt that we came up with. You see, a simple sentence. It took quite a while to get there. It took several months to refine it over the period. But really, that is the vision that our enterprise content management solution is to deliver within UK Power Networks. But it is a journey. The first part of that journey was to set up a brand new capability and separate the business from the old parent, EDF Energy. Most of the applications, they decided to do a lift and shift. SAP, ERP, Oracle database, etc. Some of their GIS mapping systems, they just lifted the data, duplicated the environment, and dropped it down. Content management, they did something a little bit different. EDF Energy had 3 legacy systems that formed their content management capability. These legacy systems were, unfortunately, either obsolete or unsupported. And I'll come on to one of the reasons why that was in a moment as well. So rather than lift and shift multiple systems, obsolete systems, they decided to go for a brand new platform. Accenture were commissioned at that time, and they did the study. They did a recommendations paper, and they actually recommended that Alfresco was the platform that UK Power Networks should invest in. It was a good paper, well-argued debate as such. They looked at things like SharePoint, they looked at the Documentums of this world, but no, they recommended Alfresco, and UK Power Networks took them up on that. Part of the rationale behind that was a single platform. They did want to get away from having multiple systems and niche systems as such. They wanted the single platform as such. They also wanted it to be supported, given the fact that some of the technology was obsolete. The third reason they went for it, and I think it was only a minor consideration, was for going for the Alfresco platform saved them £1.5 million in software license fees. But I don't think that coloured their decision at all, he said. Touching on one of the reasons why their technology at EDF had become obsolete, it had been highly customised. And in being highly customised, they'd really locked themselves in because the actual cost to do a point release upgrade was significant. It was as much as the customization cost in the first place. So they never had the budget to actually keep the project, keep the platforms evolving with what's coming out of the vendors as such, so it got further and further behind. So that spawned one of our principles, standard capability. Out of the box only. And it is one of our mantras. You know, is it out of the box? You can have it business. Is it configurable? You can have it business. Is it a customization? Not quite sure about this. There better be a good reason. Is there development required? Sorry, you have to change your processes to fit with the platform. So one of the lessons learned from the previous vendor put in place one of our principles, which was really around ensuring that the total cost of ownership going forward was never excessive. UK Power Networks are a document-rich organisation. They've got paperwork everywhere. Vans, they have vans that tootle around the countryside, repairing broken fuses, etc. We weighed the paper in one of these vans for all their manuals. Any ideas? A starter? 10 kilograms? 20? 30? It was actually 47 kilograms of paper we found in one of the trucks. And one of the tests is they can't be overloaded. So these trucks have to get weighed every 6 months to make sure they're safe to be on the road. So reducing paper was a key initiative. Their processes as well, it's a target-rich opportunity. It wasn't that we were coming along necessarily and just finessing some very, very good processes. We had the opportunity to actually rip some up and start again from scratch. Information silos, file shares, USB sticks, every way you can imagine of getting round good information governance, they managed to achieve it. And they still do in certain cases as well. So we were very much trying to consolidate, put in place, I know it's a bit of a gimmick, a single source of truth. But if we can get engineers to trust that content, then we can wean them off from having their own local copies as such. They had very limited search. They didn't have full text search, for example. So again, finding information was a challenge to them. Workflow had not even been considered. To be honest, that was a long, long way from there. So we were able to introduce some process improvements, a lot of which actually, when we look back, make use of things like tags and categories rather than formal workflows itself. But we were able to automate some features also. Last but by no means least, they didn't have mobile access. 2,500 people based in the field. It's something that was very, very much of interest to them. So that was very much where we were coming from. And also our challenge was to make sure that whatever we delivered actually met the 3 pillars of the UK Power Networks culture. And that was very much to be an employer of choice, to be a respected corporate citizen, and to be sustainably cost efficient. So when we were looking at candidates and projects to do, one of our measures was very much which or all of these would a potential solution satisfy. Okay, so we need to start. How do we go about doing it as such? We've decided that we need a new platform. How are we going to deliver it? Pretty much traditional lines, to be perfectly honest. Let's start at the top and work down. UK Power Networks put in place a sponsor. It was the CIO, so we had the necessary level of gravitas. But also the head of projects and programs was really the day-to-day senior responsible owner for this as well. They commissioned myself. I work for a company called Synapps Solutions, which are a boutique enterprise content management consultancy as such. And we looked at how do we design an organization to deliver this program. Accenture, as we touched on earlier, they were actually engaged to do the initial requirements analysis piece, the product selection piece, and we actually kept them engaged to actually deliver the first tranche. And the first tranche was really around this separation from the parent company. And we did have a deadline. You know, there was a contractual deadline that we would be off of all of their estate by a given date, and some quite hefty penalties if we didn't do that. We had Alfresco as a partner as well. They were the software provider. They also provided key skills, and they supported Accenture in the early deliverables. As we moved on, we've also introduced our third partner, Tata Consulting Services, TCS. And both the Accenture and the TCS model was an onshore, offshore model as well. So we got the benefits of some cost reduction from offshore, but we actually made sure we structured enough onshore skills to put in place good communication between the two teams. Tin, we've got to run this somewhere. It's got to sit on some servers somewhere. It's got to be accessible over the network. And UK Power Networks already had in place relationships with outsourced providers. Logica, as they were, now called CGI. They had Capgemini as well, who did their help desk support and still do, as well as their desktop support. But we introduced one in the middle as well, Rackspace. And we introduced Rackspace because we actually wanted an air gap between our internet-facing systems and our back-office systems as well. And hosting them completely separate organization was as good as air gap as we were going to get there. So you can see we've got a number of partners all working together, and I'll go back to the vision statement we used. We referred to that just about every single meeting to actually make sure that everybody was always aligned with what success looked like. So, you know, you can get quite bogged down in the details certain times. Stepping back, okay, how does this help us give a single source of truth, make it accessible to the point of need, was something that I think the team got fed up with me saying as such. But it did allow us to have a common goal as to where we were going to. Okay, so that's our partner infrastructure. It is run as a program, and the difference that I say between a program and a project here was really that there was a significant amount of education and business change involved with this as well. We weren't just delivering share to somebody's browser. We were very much then taking the business on a journey as to how to use things effectively as well. So program management-wise, we were delivering outcomes and benefits rather than just outputs from projects as such. And we looked at setting up different streams. We had a capability development stream, we had a business change stream, we had a support stream, and we had to interface with the infrastructure. We didn't put our own infrastructure in there, but we did need to integrate and interface with our infrastructure suppliers as such. So again, fairly traditional program-wise. But from a stakeholder engagement perspective, once we got past the first tranche, which was separation, we really then needed to get the business to create demand that we as a program could then deliver against. We didn't want to be the IT people saying, ha-ha, we've had a good idea, here it is, go away, use it. It was very much about trying to get the business to understand where can this help them on a daily basis. And part of that is to just educate them as to the art of the possible, but also then just to steer them as to, well, have you considered doing X or have you considered doing Y? So once the separation was out of the way, this flipped over to being a business-led initiative. And we put in place the structure that you see on the left of this slide to actually bring in the various partners of the business. There are 11, funnily enough, business units in UK Power Networks. So each one of those were asked to nominate some people to sit as part of the community of interest. So these are not skilled ECM people. These are people doing regular jobs, answering emails, answering the phone as such. Just really putting a forum there as to how we can actually communicate with the end users, the people who use the solution on a daily basis. We adopted very roughly the Forrester model of splitting enterprise content management into a persuasive content channel, a business channel, and a transactional channel. And we actually pulled out practitioners from the business who were more in the actual delivery of those capabilities as such. So we had a community of practice of ECM knowledgeable people, we had a community of interest of the business people, and we actually let them bid for projects. So they'd have an idea, and we didn't need big business cases or anything like that, we just needed like a one-pager. But we're actually encouraging them to actually take an interest in this from day one, and to, as I say, bid for particular solutions. And those solutions were reviewed by our CIO, by finance, and by one of the business representatives or board directors as such. So again, I think one of the interesting points was we as a program, we as an IT or an IS department weren't forcing the business to take something they didn't want. Well, not too often anyway. It was very much more about trying to get the business to create the demand, and then we'd look to fulfill that demand. So let's have a look at some of the results. Part of the persuasive thread was we needed a new website, a new internet site. And as I mentioned right at the start, we've got around about 8 million customers, none of them who know anything about us until something goes wrong. So we put in place there things like power cut checkers. We're not the first people to do it, but we just did it. It wasn't there before. And people can type in their postcode and get a live feedback to them as to the state. Yes, you've got a power cut. We're aware of it in your area. No, we're not. And then give them some advice. Have you checked your fuses, etc., and things like that. Engagement. We actually use this as a primary channel to actually engage with our stakeholders. And we're a regulated industry. Our regulator says we have to engage as such. So we put in place mechanisms where we could do online surveys, we could feedback results, we could ask questions, etc. So this became the primary channel for engagement. Videos. We got quite a few videos, some very, very good. What to do in the event of a power cut. What do we do? Do you know if you've got a tree growing in your back garden and it's getting near power lines, we'll come along and we'll trim it back for free. How many people knew that? So we had videos in there showing the range of services over and above, just contact us with respect to a power cut. We engaged a professional marketing agency. So we got a nice look and feel. We had every word rewritten on the website into a common tone of voice. It was very much aimed at a UK Power Networks to the consumer. So the vocabulary we used, etc., was very much to engage with the normal members of the public as such. And it was very, very successful. In the first 6 months of the rebranded site going live, we doubled the number of hits we had. And this was an interesting dilemma as well, because one of the business case items to improve in this was to reduce the number of calls that people actually make to the help desk via telephone. Manning a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year service is expensive. So if people could check the status of their power cut, they'll not need to phone, will they? So we have this wonderful predictive graph. Website usage goes up, help desk calls go down. What happened? Website usage went up, help desk calls went up. And this was a bit of a shock. Uh-oh, what have we done wrong? That was one of our business measures. We've got it wrong. But we actually looked a little bit deeper. And the calls that we were now getting were very different to the ones that we got before. Some of them were actually compliments, which is, a rarity in its own right. But people were actually using the two together. The call would start, I've seen we've got a power cut, but my neighbour's elderly, I'm a little bit worried about her. Is there anything you could do to help her? Yes, we can. So the actual conversations moved up the value chain from, have we got a power cut? Yes, thank you. To very much, yes, I'm aware we got a power cut. There's additional information we can ask. Or do you have a time when it's coming back on, etc., and things like that. So when we reviewed it, actually the customer service people were quite pleased that the calls had gone up as well. Not because it reduced their costs, they'd like that, but their customer satisfaction scores that the regulator monitors on also went up an equivalent amount. So that was an interesting one, that, and I think the lesson I've taken from that is, set yourself goals, set yourselves targets, but sometimes your targets might be wrong. I'm just going to break out of this one little piece as well, because you see there, 6 months, 205,000 visits. In the UK last week, we actually had a bit of a storm. I don't know if you saw it on the TV as such. And it went right through the 3 areas where UK Power Networks look at the distribution side. One of those areas, London, was pretty much untouched. Do you know why that is? The vast majority of the power lines in built-up areas are underground, so they're not prone to trees falling over. However, East Anglia, South East London, lots of the overhead lines there were taken down by trees and storm damage. And this is the Google Analytics of our website. And we typically have around about 250 users at a normal day. At 4 o'clock on the day that the storm had just gone through, we peaked at 6,500 users. And it's this thing again, nobody knows who we are until there's an incident, and then they do need to know who we are. And we were very, very pleased because our website stayed up. You know, we used that as our primary channel alongside things like Twitter. Twitter really came into its strength during this storm. But there's a couple of observations as well. You've got a power cut. How do you get hold of us? Well, funnily enough, 50% of those people got to us from a desktop computer. So their power might be out, but they're probably phoning or looking when they're at work, or they're looking from somebody else's house, etc. So 50% of the traffic we got was traditional desktop-based traffic, which surprised us. We were expecting more of a peak mobile. 50% of it was mobile. Of that 50% as well, how much of it was Android traffic and how much of it was iPhone traffic? Just a quick straw poll. Any guesses? 50-50? In which way? Not far off. 90-10. 90% of all mobile traffic was from iPhones and iPads. 10% was from Android, and I think we had about 2 who were on Microsoft platforms. And that surprised us as well. It really did. There may be something coming out on the BBC about that, because the BBC were very interested in the response to the storm and the social media side of things also. But just a little diversion there. And you could see we had 85,000 visitors over that week. 6 months before, we only had 205 across the whole period. We also put in place a site that was optimized for mobile use. So if you hit this with an Android, if you hit it with an iPhone, you get redirected to a mobile version of the site. And again, this is all Alfresco under the hood. This is using Web Quick Start as such, so there's no customization or magic under there. But again, this was designed by professionals, professional market agencies. One of the other things that came to us, and it came from one of those business engagements, was we have a need to publish certain types of document to the general public. Can we have a capability to publish what they call G81 documents? And we said, yes, you can, but we'd like to do it in a certain way. What we'd like to do is give you a capability where you can publish libraries of documents and cabinets of documents. So rather than look at a specific, here's a capability just to deliver these documents, we actually put in place a generic library capability where we can add cabinets to that. Our approach that we developed throughout this was loosely based on Agile. We weren't heavy into specification, we weren't heavy into requirements management. Quite early on, we realized that UK Power Networks as an organization couldn't really work that way. If they asked for something, they probably didn't mean it. So we evolved a much more prototype-driven environment. So it was a case of, right, we understand what we think you want to do. Let's play back to you how we can deliver that with Alfresco. And here you go, have a play. Ah, yes, yes, I can see what you mean now. But, oh, yes, yeah, I know I asked for that, but I don't want that anymore. Can I have it over here? So we really put in place a couple of like sprints where we do a prototype, let them loose for a week, capture their feedback, put it into production at level 1, and very rare after that we actually needed to make further changes from it. But that just really was playing back to how UK Power Networks as an organisation worked effectively. We could have done waterfall, they weren't ready for it, so we adapted our approach to actually deliver what the organisation could understand. We got compliment from one of our users here, but we also got a criticism. We're actually treating our customers and our competitors, because this is for competitors as well, better than we treat our own staff. What we've done on the intranet, on the internet, we also did internally on-premise with respect to the intranet. Now, we looked at engaging a professional agency as well to design the look and feel for the intranet. The business case just didn't stack up. So I'm afraid this is our IT-led approach to how an intranet should look. We're techies, so it's very functional, it works, but you couldn't really call it inspiring. Sorry. But we added capabilities there to do hospitality registers. We took the opportunity to flatten the information structure. There's no links lower than 4 levels now across the entire site. We made it horizontal. We consolidated all the policies and procedures into a single area, whereas before they'd been spread throughout the environment as such. So we did some cleansing, we did some simplification. You couldn't say we did any beautification on this. But again, this is web quick start, out of the box, with some web skills deployed against it. And then document management and collaboration. And this really is 80% of our workload is in the DMS and the collaboration space. And it's using it out of the box. You know, can we have it in pink? No. I'd like this box over here. Yeah, that's a very good idea. You can't have it. You know, again, we went back to our principles, and I wouldn't quite be as blunt as that with the customers, but we went back to our principles. It's very much out of the box. We want to minimize the future cost of ownership. We want to be able to drop releases in as they come out to exploit some of the new things we saw this morning, for example. But it did mean that we had to face off to the business at some stages, and sometimes the business weren't used to being told no. And this is really where you need the active sponsorship of the CIO as well to reinforce that. Audit. UK Power Networks are a safety-critical organisation. You know, they are dealing with voltages that can kill. So auditability of records and making it available is actually one of our key drivers, really, to everything we do. Safety-wise is something that every single meeting starts with a safety topic as such. And being able to audit that people have actually viewed the right document is important to us. And we made people aware of that as well. You know, we did make users aware that, you know, we've got audit running behind the scenes, but don't worry, it's not to track your every movement. And we just left it hanging a bit. But users do know now that if they don't actually review a safety brief, potentially we can actually find that out. Okay, so what's the outcomes? We're at the stage now where we're just winding down. We're doing the transition of the program into business as usual. We've been running for about 2 years, and we believe that we've been successful. We've not hit every particular problem that we wanted to do, but by golly, we've made a difference in certain areas as such. So, what are our outcomes? We have got a single platform. Tick. We've got an external-facing environment, an internet-facing environment hosted on Rackspace as such, which the website's on, but we've also got secure collaboration, we've got document management there for our partners predominantly to use. Rough rule of thumb, if 80% of a potential audience are external to UK Power Networks, we tend to suggest we put it in the cloud. If 80% are internal, we tend to say we stay inside the on-premise and give them VPN access as such. And the big grey area between them, we just have a debate with, to see which one's most appropriate. But we have, we've looked at cloud, and cloud doesn't replace on-premise, but it can augment it. And very much we have done that. We've used cloud where it works for us. We've used on-premise where it works for us. 5,000 plus users, single sign-on the on-premise side of things as well. So again, we've actually managed to get to everybody who we needed to get there. Still needing to drive adoption. That's a never-ending challenge to actually keep drilling the message home as to why people should make use of a system. We've got integrated mobile access. That's a real big plus. But it's also brought a bit of a dilemma as well. The UK PM platform is BlackBerry, and that's not really a particularly good platform when you're wanting to access documents via a website as such. So that's created the demand that perhaps our CIO didn't want with respect to tablets and smartphones. Well, he's not got the budget for it anyway, let's put it that way. Enterprise support, yes, we take the full enterprise support package from Alfresco as such, so we've got resolutions to issues as such. We try and fairly quickly bring on board new releases. We're still on 4.1.5 at the moment, we're not at 4.2, but probably around about December time, we'll put that in. So we do try and keep up with the actual pace of change. But one we are most proud about is we actually won an award. And it's quite a prestigious award in the UK as well. We won the Consumer Website of the Year award. And that was really based on the content and the growth and this ability that, people don't need to find us until there's an incident, and when they do, they need to find us fairly quickly. And we went along to this awards thinking, we've just put a full platform in there, we've not really optimized it. And we were very, very surprised when we won. But the previous winners of that have been Tesco's online, First Direct Bank, which are both huge organizations and really internet-facing organizations as well. So we're really pleased with respect to getting the recognition for the site there. Last messages. Key observations as we come into our lessons learnt type stage in our benefits review. Start with the end in mind. If you go back, I put up that vision. We actually put that vision in place within the first weeks and then refined it over the first couple of months. But really start knowing what success looks like. But success through the eyes of your users and through the eyes of the business. Choose partners who can work with your culture. And again, we came into this thinking this would be a fairly waterfall type approach. It wasn't. The culture of the organization wasn't ready for that. And if we'd have tried, like some of our other initiatives tried to do waterfall, we'd have failed. So pick partners who can fit in with your culture. Pick partners who are flexible enough as well to adapt as you go forward. Offshore resource. I think, again, one of our key measures, one of the things that we look back on and we think we've got right, is getting the balance between onshore and offshore skills correct. And with us, it's about 50-50. There are some models that are heavily offshored. I don't think that would have worked for us. We've got the balance, I think, just about right. It costs us a little bit more, but it probably doesn't in the long run, because I think our quality is higher and our customer satisfaction, our business satisfaction is higher. And cloud, it's not the panacea to everything, but it's definitely got a contribution. So use it, I would suggest, where it adds value. Thank you very, very much. Any questions?
Come over with the microphone if you just give me a sec.
What did you use for your externally facing website in terms of a content management system?
This is all Alfresco. This is web content management, WCMQS.
Right, so use the web quick start for the externally facing website as well.
For the external, for the mobile, and for the internal.
So what challenges did you face there in terms of making sure that had appropriate performance?
The performance side of things, we didn't necessarily have a particular issue with. And I'll diverge a little bit. I put that graph up to show our leaders how wonderful the website had done. It took this peak and everything like that. One of the IT people came back to me and said, "Why did you overspec those servers?" You can't win, can you? It was really looking at the size of the boxes. You know, we did some prediction as to what those peaks would look like, and then we added a factor of about 5 on top of it, and actually put the necessary boxes in place. And they're not just VMs. This is not like an Amazon type environment. This is managed infrastructure, so it sits on hardware boxes behind a load balancer that's doing fail-safe, and there's just 2 web servers running side by side. One of the challenges was we tried to make use of replication and failed miserably. We could not get that to work, and Accenture was heavily involved in that. So we took the replication out. This is 18 months ago. It was on 3.4.6. We've never been brave enough to try it again. So we've got an editorial, we've got the live, but we're on the same type of environment as such. Challenges were getting the web editors who are part-time web editors to have the necessary skills to actually deliver decent content was one of the challenges there. They don't have a team of web editors. You know, it's part of, you know, administrators' normal day-to-day work. Does that answer the question? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi. Quick question around user adoption on the document management and collaboration side of it. Did you find there were any challenges with people wanting to use a new system, and how did you overcome that?
Oh, lots. Lots and lots. When I look at the start of this, if I go back 2 years, I thought the amount of documents they've got, the amount of process, document management will be easy. Collaboration, yeah, we'll just get that. Web will be difficult. And it actually spun the other way around. The web people really got it within the organization with the results that we've seen. Collaboration, we're now pushing against an open door. The majority of people see the value in collaboration. But document management is still our biggest challenge. You know, engineers, we've got a project that's doing a major upgrade. Their engineers just will not use any system. So they're passing that on to their document controllers to try and unpick the mess that they've got. And I think, again, part of the lessons learned is we perhaps weren't strong enough with the stick in certain areas. We've led with the carrot for most of this particular program, and we only get the stick out occasionally. My business change manager, Tim, he's excellent. He's a real people person. He's not like me, I hate people. But he's a real people person. So he plays the good cop. I tend to play the bad cop. But to be honest, I think we probably wanted more of our CIO to say, just do it. And does that answer your question?
Time for one more, I think. I'll just take the mic over.
Hi, David. The communities of interest, the stakeholder engagement piece that you described, does that exist after the programme finishes? And does that, when you look at the kind of community interest groups, does that also incorporate other application opportunities as well?
It's a good question, that. We're hopeful they will continue. the Apache, again, we've had certain areas where they form little subcommittees, and they're very active. I would say the web editors, for example. That undoubtedly will continue to run, and it runs now without our facilitation. Some of the other ones, I think, will suffer from people's workload and will wither as such. But as we're transferring this into business as usual, we are leaving behind the business change skills. So the program will close, the new capability will close, but we have recognized that we do need to carry on with the adoption type work. So I'm hopeful that the majority will, but I don't think they all will. I'll take it up with you offline about the other applications, because that's an interesting challenge that we've got.
That's great. Thank you very much, David, once again. Appreciate your presentation. Very good.
Thank you very much.